Your old mother. Just be quiet and do as we say." Those words came from my own daughter's mouth while my son nodded in agreement. They had no idea that in the next 72 hours, I would erase their names from every single account, trust, and beneficiary list I controlled. By Wednesday morning, their credit cards started declining one by one, and that was just the beginning. Welcome back to Ashes of Inheritance, where ordinary women keep their composure while everything around them falls apart and walk away with their dignity intact. If you believe the quietest person at the table is often the one holding the most, you're in the right place. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. My name is Patricia Walsh and I'm 73 years old. Before I tell you what happened, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or state in the comments. It helps me know I'm not alone in this because what I'm about to share with you is something I never thought would happen in my own family. But it did. And maybe some of you have faced something similar. Let me take you back to where this all started. I was married to my husband, Robert, for 47 years. He passed away 3 years ago from a heart attack, sudden and devastating. Robert was a careful man, a planner. We'd built a good life together. He was a civil engineer, and I worked as a hospital administrator for 30 years before retiring. We saved, we invested, we were smart with our money. When Robert died, he left me comfortable, very comfortable. The house was paid off. We had investment accounts, life insurance, rental properties. I'm talking about assets worth just over $3 million. I had 2 children. My daughter Jennifer was 46, worked in marketing for a tech company, married to a man named Derek, who ran his own consulting business. My son Michael was 43, a sales manager, married to a woman named Amber, who didn't work, but called herself a lifestyle influencer. Both couples had children. Jennifer had 2 teenage boys. Michael had a 7-year-old daughter. After Robert died, I went through that horrible fog of grief. You know, the one where you're just moving through the days, barely functioning. My kids were supportive at first. They came to the funeral, helped sort through Robert's things, made sure I was eating. I appreciated it. I really did. But then things started to shift. It started small. Jennifer began commenting on my spending. I'd bought myself a new car. Nothing extravagant, just a reliable Lexus SUV because my old sedan was 12 years old and starting to have problems. She called me 3 days after I drove it home. "Mom, do you really need a car that expensive? You're not exactly bringing in a salary anymore." I remember being taken aback. "Jennifer, I can afford it, and I wanted something safe and reliable. I'm just saying you need to think about your future, about our future too. Our future." That phrase started showing up more and more. Michael was different in his approach. He started talking about investments, about maximizing my portfolio, about how I should let him introduce me to his financial advisor. Never mind that I'd been managing money successfully for decades. Never mind that Robert and I had built our wealth specifically because we were careful and educated about our finances. "Mom, you're going to lose money if you don't let professionals handle this," he'd say. "You don't understand how complicated things are now." I understood perfectly well. I had a degree in business administration, had managed hospital budgets in the millions, had made our investment decisions alongside Robert for years. But apparently turning 70 meant I'd lost all capability in their eyes. The visits increased. Jennifer started showing up unannounced, going through my mail, asking about my bank statements. Michael began pressuring me to add him as a joint account holder just in case something happens. Amber started making comments about how big the house was for just one person, how I should think about downsizing, how they could help me find a nice little condo. A nice little condo. I lived in a 4-bedroom house that Robert and I had bought 30 years ago that held every memory of our marriage that I loved. But apparently, I needed a nice little condo. The real turning point came about 8 months after Robert's death. I had started dating someone. His name was George, a retired veterinarian I'd met at a grief support group. We went to dinner, to movies, took walks in the park. Nothing serious, just companionship, someone who understood loss, who could make me laugh again. I made the mistake of mentioning George at a family dinner. Jennifer's fork clattered onto her plate. "You're dating?" We're just friends spending time together. Dad's barely been gone a year." Her voice went shrill. "Almost a year and a half," I corrected gently. "And your father wouldn't want me to be alone." Michael leaned forward. "Mom, you need to be careful. Men target wealthy widows. It's a known thing. George is a retired veterinarian with his own money. We split the check when we go out. That's what they want you to think." Amber chimed in. "You're vulnerable right now. You're not thinking clearly." I wasn't thinking clearly. Me, the woman who'd run a hospital department, who'd managed complex budgets, who'd raised 2 children and built a small fortune. But apparently going to dinner with a kind man meant I'd lost my mental faculties. I ended things with George 2 weeks later, not because I wanted to, but because my children made every single interaction miserable. Jennifer called crying, saying I was disrespecting her father's memory. Michael showed up with printed articles about elder fraud. The guilt they piled on became unbearable. George was understanding. "Your family means well," he said when I explained, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. I was hurt too, and angry, but I told myself they were just protective, just worried, just grieving in their own way. I was making excuses for them. I see that now. Things escalated over the next year. Jennifer got a promotion that came with a significant pay raise, but somehow she was always complaining about money. The private school tuition for her boys, the mortgage on their upgraded house, Derek's business expenses. Michael's daughter needed braces, needed tutoring, needed expensive sports equipment. Amber wanted to renovate their kitchen, and they all started looking at me as the solution. "Mom, could you help us out with the tuition? In this semester. Just a loan. Mom, we're a little short on the mortgage payment. Could you cover it this once? Mom, the kitchen is falling apart. Could you fund the renovation? Consider it an early inheritance, as if I was already dead." I helped at first. 5,000 here, 1,000 there. I told myself, this is what families do, this is what parents do. But the requests kept coming, and they were never loans. No one ever paid me back. No one even mentioned paying me back. Then came the meeting. That's what I call it now, the meeting. Jennifer called and asked if she and Michael could come over to discuss some important family matters. I made coffee, put out cookies, sat in my living room waiting for my children like I was about to be lectured by the principal. They came with folders, printed documents. They'd done research. "Mom, we need to talk about your situation." Jennifer started. She had this tone, the one you use with a child who's misbehaved. "We've been consulting with a financial planner and an estate attorney without me," I asked. "We wanted to get professional advice about how to protect you," Michael said, "and protect your assets." They proceeded to lay out their plan. I should sign over power of attorney to both of them immediately. I should add them as joint account holders on all my bank accounts. I should transfer the deed of the house into a family trust that they would manage. I should move into a senior living community. They'd already toured 3 and had brochures. "You're getting older, Mom," Jennifer said. "What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you get sick?" "I'm 73, not 93. I'm healthy. I'm active. I'm of sound mind." "That's what everyone thinks, until they're not." Michael said, "This is about being proactive." I looked at the documents they'd brought. Everything would give them complete control over my finances, my property, my life. I would need their permission to access my own money. "I'm not signing any of this," I said firmly. That's when their masks slipped. Jennifer's face hardened. "Mom, stop being difficult. We're trying to help you. I don't need this kind of help." "Yes, you do. You're making bad decisions. The car, the spending, that man you were seeing, George. I stopped seeing George because you made me feel guilty about it because it was wrong." Jennifer's voice rose. "You're not capable of making these judgments anymore." Michael put his hand on his sister's arm, trying to be the reasonable one. "Mom, look, we love you, but you're old. You don't understand modern finance, modern threats. You need to let us protect you by taking control of everything I own. By managing it properly, he said. Before you mess it all up. I stood up. I think you should leave, Mom. Jennifer started. No, get out of my house. They looked shocked, like I'd slapped them. Jennifer gathered her folders with sharp, angry movements. You're being unreasonable. We're just trying to help. Then help by respecting my autonomy. Fine, Michael said coldly. But don't come crying to us when something goes wrong. Don't expect us to clean up your mess. They left. I sat in my living room, hands shaking, wondering what had just happened. These were my children, the babies I'd carried, nursed, raised, and they just tried to take complete control of my life. But it didn't stop there. Oh, it got so much worse. Over the next few weeks, they started a campaign. Jennifer called my friends telling them she was worried about Mom's mental state. Michael contacted my doctor, expressing concerns about my cognition and asking if I should be evaluated for dementia. Amber posted on social media about the difficult journey of watching a parent decline without naming me specifically. But everyone knew they were building a case. They were documenting. They were preparing to declare me incompetent. I went to my attorney, a woman named Sharon, who'd handled Robert's estate. I told her everything. Patricia, this is elder financial abuse, she said bluntly. What they're attempting is a form of exploitation. Have you given them power of attorney? No, don't. Have you added them to any accounts? No. Good. Keep it that way. She leaned forward. I'm going to be direct with you. Your children are circling like vultures. They see you as a bank account, not a mother. And if they're going to these lengths now, it's only going to get worse. They're my children, I whispered. I know, but I've seen this before too many times. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything they'd said, everything they'd done. And I realized they didn't love me. Not really. They loved my money. They loved what I could give them. But me, the actual person, I was just an obstacle to their inheritance. The final straw came 3 weeks later. I had made plans to take a trip, a river cruise through Europe that I'd always wanted to do with Robert, but we'd kept putting off. I was going to do it now for both of us. 2 weeks, all expenses paid for my travel fund. I was excited. I felt alive for the first time since Robert died. I mentioned it at dinner with Jennifer and Michael. I thought they'd be happy for me. Jennifer put down her wine glass. How much is this costing? That's not your concern. Everything you spend is our concern, Mom. That's our inheritance. You're blowing our inheritance. Like I was already gone. Like my money was already theirs. I'm allowed to spend my own money on things I enjoy. You're being selfish, Michael said. Do you know what we could do with that money? Sarah needs braces. Jennifer's boys need college funds, but you're going to waste it on a vacation. Derek, Jennifer's husband, leaned back in his chair. Patricia, I think what they're trying to say is that at your age, these kinds of frivolous expenses aren't wise. You need to preserve capital. Frivolous. My voice was ice. Experiencing the world is frivolous. You've already traveled, Amber added, checking her phone. You and Robert went places. Why do you need to do it again? Just watch travel videos on YouTube. Watch travel videos instead of actually living. It's not a waste. It's my life. You don't have that much life left, Jennifer snapped. The room went silent. Even she looked shocked she'd said it out loud. What I mean is, she started. I know what you mean. I stood up. I think it's time you both leave. Mom, sit down, Michael said. His voice had changed harder. We need to settle this. You're going to cancel that trip. You're going to sign over power of attorney. And you're going to stop fighting us on this. No. Jennifer stood too, and something ugly crossed her face. You're old, Mother. Just be quiet and do as we say. We're done asking nicely. Either you cooperate or we'll have you declared incompetent and get guardianship. The doctor visits the concerns we've documented. Your erratic behavior. We have enough for a case. The threat hung in the air. Michael nodded. We've already talked to an attorney. We can make this happen. So you can either do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. Your choice." They stood there, my two children, looking at me with cold calculation, like I was a business problem to solve, an asset to acquire. Something inside me went very still, very calm. "Get out," I said quietly. "Mom," Jennifer started. "Get out of my house." They left. Jennifer slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood in my kitchen in the house where I'd raised them, where I'd kissed their scraped knees and celebrated their birthdays and sent them off to college. And I realized I was done. I was done being treated like I was senile, done being treated like a checkbook, done being threatened and manipulated and disrespected in my own home. If they wanted to treat me like an enemy, I would show them what a real enemy looked like. The next morning, I called Sharon. "I need you to do something for me. I need you to do a lot of things for me." "Actually, I'm listening. I want them removed from everything. Every beneficiary list, every trust document, every will provision, everything." "Patricia, are you sure? This is a big step. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." We spent the next week in her office going through every single document. It was exhausting, but also empowering. Robert had set up trusts for the grandchildren's education with Jennifer and Michael as trustees. I removed them and appointed Sharon as trustee instead. The money would still be there for the kids' college, but my children would have no control over it, no ability to manipulate it or use it as leverage. The life insurance policies that named them as beneficiaries changed to various charities: the American Cancer Society, a women's shelter, the local animal rescue, organizations that would use the money to actually help people, not to fund kitchen renovations and private school tuition for families who could afford their own lives. The investment accounts with transfer on death designations, I removed their names completely. Sharon helped me set up a charitable remainder trust. I would receive income from the investments for the rest of my life, and upon my death, the remaining assets would go to charity. "This is brilliant," Sharon said, reviewing the paperwork. "They can't contest what they were never legally entitled to in the first place. And you're still taking care of the grandchildren's education." "I'm not punishing the kids for their parents' behavior," I said. "But Jennifer and Michael, they made their choice. The house was trickier. Robert and I had owned it jointly, so when he died, it passed entirely to me. Jennifer and Michael had been expecting to inherit it, probably planning to sell it and split the proceeds. I'd overheard them discussing it once, talking about what the house might be worth on the current market, whether they should renovate before selling or sell ACES. I transferred the deed into an irrevocable trust with a charity as the remainder beneficiary. When I died, the house would be sold and the proceeds would go to a women's shelter that helped victims of domestic abuse and elder abuse. It felt appropriate. Sharon walked me through each signature, each notarization. "You're sure about this, Patricia? Once these documents are signed, some of them can't be undone." I've never been more certain of anything. I also called the bank. Not just one bank, but every financial institution where I had accounts. Every single account where they might have suspected they'd get access. Checking, savings, investment accounts, money market accounts, CDs. I added password protections and specific instructions that only I could make changes or withdrawals. I added fraud alerts. I made sure that if they tried to use my name or information to access anything, I would be notified immediately. The bank manager at my primary institution, a woman named Carol, who'd known me for 20 years, looked concerned. "Mrs. Walsh, this level of security is usually for cases of identity theft or family financial abuse." "Yes," I said simply. She understood. She'd probably seen it before. "I'll make sure everything is locked down tight." Then came the really satisfying part. Remember how I'd been helping them financially? The loans that were never paid back, the thousands of dollars for tuition and mortgages and renovations. I'd been adding Jennifer and Derek as authorized users on one of my credit cards, so Jennifer could make purchases for the house renovations I'd been funding. Michael and Amber had their own card on a different account for what they called family emergencies. I called the credit card companies. I canceled their authorized user status immediately. Both cards. No warning, no explanation to them, just done. Then I went further. I pulled up my phone records and documented every request for money, every guilt trip, every threat they'd made. I wrote everything down in a detailed timeline with dates, amounts, and direct quotes where I could remember them. Sharon helped me organize it into a formal statement. "This is for your protection," she explained. "If they do try to pursue guardianship or claim you're incompetent, we have a clear record showing they have financial motivation. It undermines any claim that they're acting in your best interest." The last piece was the most painful. I wrote a letter to each of them. Not angry, just honest. I explained that I loved them, but I would not accept being treated with disrespect and contempt. I would not be manipulated, threatened, or controlled. I was removing them as beneficiaries and trustees because they had shown they valued my money more than they valued me as a person. The letter concluded with this: "If you want a relationship with me, it will be because you want your mother, not because you want your inheritance. The choice is yours." I mailed the letters on a Monday. Certified mail, return receipt requested. I wanted proof they'd received them. Then I waited. Jennifer's card declined first. She'd gone to some expensive boutique, tried to buy something for over $1,000. The clerk ran the card, declined. She tried again, declined. She asked the clerk to try once more, her voice getting higher. Declined. She called me while she was still standing in the store, and I could hear the humiliation in her voice. "Mom, something's wrong with the credit card. Can you call the company?" "There's nothing wrong," I said calmly. "I removed you as an authorized user." Silence. "Then what?" "You heard me. It's my card. You're no longer authorized to use it." But I need Mom. I have items here I'm trying to purchase. There are people waiting behind me. Then use your own money. I don't have—" She stopped herself. "You can't do this." "I absolutely can. It's my credit card, Jennifer. My account. My money. Goodbye." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt a rush of something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Control over my own life. I pictured her standing there in that boutique, having to tell the clerk she couldn't afford her purchase, having to put everything back. The same daughter who told me I was spending too much on a reliable car. 20 minutes later, Derek called. "Patricia, I don't know what's going on, but Jennifer is very upset. She says you've cut off her credit card. I removed her access to my credit card. There's a difference. This is extremely petty. She relies on that card for household expenses. Then perhaps you and Jennifer should rely on your own income for your household expenses. We have 2 children to support. I raised 2 children on far less than what you and Jennifer make combined. You'll figure it out." He sputtered something about family loyalty, but I'd already hung up. Michael's card declined at a restaurant that same evening. He'd taken clients out for dinner at a steakhouse, ordered expensive wine, appetizers, the works. When the check came, he confidently handed over my credit card, something he'd been doing regularly, claiming it was for business expenses that would benefit our family. The server came back. "Sir, this card has been declined." Michael's face went red. "That's impossible. Try it again." She did, declined again. His clients were watching. One of them offered to split the check. Michael had to accept, fumbling with his own credit card that probably couldn't cover the full amount. He called me from the parking lot, and I could hear the rage in his voice. "What the hell, Mom? Do you know what you just did? You embarrassed me in front of important clients. You embarrassed yourself by using your mother's credit card for your business expenses. You said I could use it, and now I'm saying you can't. Consider it effective immediately. This is because of the other night, isn't it? Because we were trying to help you. You were trying to control me. There's a difference. Mom, you're being unreasonable." "No, Michael, I'm being clear. This is my money. These are my accounts, and you no longer have access to any of it. You're going to regret this. I doubt that." I hung up. The letters arrived Wednesday. I know because they both called within an hour of each other, and I could hear the panic in their voices. Jennifer was crying. Mom, please. You can't cut us out of everything. We're your children. You threatened to have me declared incompetent. We didn't mean it. We were just frustrated. You told me I was old and should be quiet and do as you say. You told me I don't have much life left. You treated me like I was already dead and you were just waiting to divide up the estate. I'm sorry. I didn't mean those things. Her voice was breaking, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine remorse or panic about losing money. You meant every word. You just didn't think there would be consequences. What about the boys? Their college funds? The education trusts are still there. Sharon manages them now. Your sons will be fine. But you've shown me exactly what you think of your mother. Please don't do this. Derek is going to kill me. We budgeted around. She stopped around my money. I finished. That was your mistake, Jennifer. You built a lifestyle you couldn't afford and expected me to subsidize it forever. She was sobbing now. Real ugly crying. Part of me wanted to comfort her the way I had when she was little and scraped her knee. But this wasn't a scraped knee. This was the consequence of treating your mother like an ATM machine. Michael tried a different approach. He wasn't crying. His voice was controlled, calculated. Mom, let's talk about this rationally. You're hurt. I understand. But you're making decisions based on emotion that will affect the whole family. I'm making decisions based on being treated with contempt by my own children. We've apologized. No, Jennifer apologized because she realized her inheritance is gone. You haven't apologized at all. You're trying to negotiate. You're trying to find an angle. That's not fair. Fair. You wanted to take control of my entire life. You called my doctor behind my back. You posted on social media about my supposed decline. You systematically tried to build a case to have me declared incompetent so you could control my assets. And you want to talk to me about fair. There was a long pause. What do you want from us? His voice cracked a little, and for a moment he almost sounded like my son again. That question stopped me. What did I want? I want you to see me as your mother, not as a bank account. I want respect. I want you to understand that threatening to take away my freedom, my autonomy, my control over my own life, that's not love. That's abuse. Silence on the line. The trusts for the grandchildren are still intact, I continued. Sharon manages them now, and that money will be there for their education, but everything else you've lost. Not because I stopped loving you, but because you stopped loving me as anything other than a source of money. So that's it. Michael's voice was cold again. You're just going to cut us off completely. I'm giving you a choice. You can have a relationship with me based on mutual respect, or you can walk away, but the money is off the table either way. He hung up. Over the next few days, I got the full reaction. Angry text messages came at all hours. How could you do this to your own family? Dad would be ashamed of you. You're destroying your grandchildren's future. Voicemails ranging from tearful to furious filled my phone. Amber posted something on social media about ungrateful parents who abandon their children after taking everything from them. The irony was completely lost on her. Jennifer told my sister that I'd gone senile and cut them off irrationally, that I was clearly declining mentally and they were worried about me. My sister called me to check, and when I explained what had really happened, she was horrified at them, not at me. Michael consulted with an attorney about contesting the changes. I know because the attorney called Sharon to discuss it, and Sharon shut it down immediately. Everything was legal, properly documented, and I had clear mental capacity. The attorney told Michael he had no case. That must have been a bitter pill to swallow. The best part, they'd both been living beyond their means, counting on my money as a safety net. Jennifer had to pull her boys from private school and enroll them in public school. The boys were upset, but honestly, public school was good enough for their mother. It would be good enough for them. Michael and Amber had to cancel their planned kitchen renovation. Amber had already posted mock-ups on Instagram, had already told all her followers about the upcoming transformation. Now she had to quietly delete those posts. They'd built their budgets around my generosity, around the assumption that Mom's wallet was always open. And now that safety net was gone, and they were free falling. Their cards kept declining at gas stations, at grocery stores, everywhere they'd gotten used to using my credit without thinking about it. Jennifer called me 3 days after her boutique incident, sobbing that she'd been declined at the grocery store with a cart full of food and her sons waiting in the car. I had to leave everything there, Mom. I had to walk out empty-handed while people stared at me. Part of me felt sympathy, but a larger part remembered her standing in my living room telling me I was old and should be quiet. You have your own credit cards, Jennifer. They're maxed out. We were using your card while we paid down our balances. Then I suggest you adjust your spending. Amber's Instagram stories became increasingly bitter. Photos of their old kitchen with captions like, "Grateful for what we have," with a martied tone, posts about family betrayal, and when parents choose money over children. The comments from her followers were sympathetic. Of course, they didn't know the truth. Michael's business took a hit too. He'd been using my card for client entertainment, for expensive dinners and golf outings, building relationships on my dime. Now, he had to scale back, and apparently some of his clients noticed the difference. He sent me a text. "Thanks for ruining my business, Mom. Hope you're happy." I blocked his number. Each declined transaction was a little reminder. This is real. The gravy train has ended. You're on your own now. About 2 weeks after everything went down, my sister called. "Patty, what's going on?" Jennifer called me crying, saying, "You've gone crazy and cut them off." I explained everything. The threats, the manipulation, the attempt to control my life. My sister was quiet for a long moment. "I wish you'd told me this was happening." I was embarrassed. They should be embarrassed. "Patty, I'm proud of you. What you did took guts. Did I do the right thing?" "Absolutely. They're adults. They need to live within their means, not within yours." That conversation gave me strength. I started reaching out to friends I'd isolated myself from, accepting invitations I'd been declining. I booked my river cruise. I even called George, though I didn't know if he'd want to hear from me. "Patricia," he said warmly, "I've been thinking about you. I'm sorry about before, about ending things. Your children were putting pressure on you." They were. They're not anymore. We met for coffee, then dinner. Then we started seeing each other regularly again. He made me laugh. He treated me like a partner, not a child or a bank account. He met me as an equal. It's been 4 months now since I removed Jennifer and Michael from everything. The aftermath has been interesting. Jennifer reached out 3 weeks ago, not asking for money, just asking if we could talk. We met for lunch. She apologized. Really apologized. Not the kind where you're just sorry you got caught. "I was wrong," she said about all of it. "I got so focused on the money, on what I thought we needed, that I forgot you were a person with your own life to live. I forgot to see you as my mom." "Why the change?" I asked. She looked down at her coffee. "Because I realized I'd rather have you in my life than have your money. And also because my therapist asked me how I'd feel if my boys treated me the way I was treating you. It made me sick to think about. We're taking it slow, but we're rebuilding." She comes over for dinner now, and we actually talk about her life, about my life, about things that matter beyond money. Michael is a different story. He hasn't apologized. He's still angry, still feeling entitled to what he thinks I owe him. Amber convinced him to cut contact completely unless I come to my senses. I haven't heard from him in 2 months. It hurts. He's my son and I love him. But I can't have a relationship with someone who only wants me for what I can give them. The house is still mine. My accounts are still mine. I'm taking that river cruise next month and George is coming with me. I'm living my life on my terms and I'm not apologizing for it. Would I have preferred my children loved me enough to not need this wake-up call? Of course. But they made their choices and I made mine. I'm 73 years old. I'm not old. I'm not incapable. I'm not going to be quiet and do as I'm told. I'm free. And to anyone watching this who's dealing with family members trying to control them, manipulate them, or treat them like they're incompetent just because they've reached a certain age, you have power. You have rights. You deserve respect. Don't let anyone, not even your children, take that from you. The choice is always yours. Remember that.